Hello, friends, and welcome to another weekly garden walk and talk. It's Hila here from Hila at Home. And for those of you who are new, I garden in a medium sized garden in the north of England, and it's a USDA Zone 9A. So, we're starting off by the pond because there has been so much going on with the pond. The pond lilies have all come out now, and unfortunately, it's not a sunny day, which is when the lily flowers tend to open beautifully. But the lily pads, during the off season, they sort of sink down to the bottom of the pond. And then when it's hot enough, they sort of come back up when the season is right. And then the flowers come out, which is a really wonderful sight to see. I have tidied up around the pond area by pulling out any of the weeds that were going through the stones, but I still need to use a leaf blower to remove the dead leaves and debris over there. We're quite lucky that our neighboring boundary has got some really lovely foliage. So there's this wonderful honeysuckle that sort of drapes itself over, and it casts out the most beautiful scent. So this particular area, when you walk through it, you just get the most beautiful sensory environment from that honeysuckle. The wild geranium that's amongst the rockery is still growing strong with bits of pink there. So this geranium sanguineum is a really wonderful variety to have. I think it's also commonly called crane's bill hardy geranium, and it just keeps on flowering throughout the season. Over on the other side, we have the golden showers climbing rose, which has been doing really well. And you can see there the water butt is completely filled because it has just been raining so much. And yeah, it's been overflowing at certain points. And I have these trugs around that collect rainwater, which I then just use to tip over. And it's an easy way to make sure that I do some watering using rainwater. The sweet peas are just doing absolutely wonderfully. I'm cutting them every morning and night and constantly keeping a lovely little vase of sweet peas in the house. Marigolds are a summer favorite of mine. My mom grows marigolds, so I just grew up with marigolds around. So I love having pots of marigolds. And this year is the first year that I've actually used old terracotta pots for them, and they are doing so much better. They don't dry out as quickly as they do in plastic pots, and in fact I'm gradually phasing out the plastic flower pots that I have and moving towards terracottas. The potatoes, the leaves are beginning to yellow, and you can see some of the potatoes beginning to poke through. Quite exciting considering they still have a couple of months yet to go. One of the tasks that I have to do is to cut down the stalks of the hosta flowers so that they don't waste energy creating seed pods, so that they can put the energy back into the leaves. My hardy fuchsia is blooming, and I love hardy fuchsias. They are just the prettiest flowers with their wonderful shades of vibrant pinks, and I really like the blue of the pot that it's in. Really highlights the pinkness. Unfortunately, my dahlias or dahlias, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, not doing very well. The slug and snail invasion is it's getting a little bit overwhelming at this moment. They do seem to really love them, but next to them I have the most wonderful double petal lilies, tower lilies, and they are just so gorgeous, and they throw out the most incredible scent, and that's why I moved them to have them right next to the door, the entry doorway. Aside from the delicate pinkness, which is just such a beautiful vibrant color, even the camera can't do it justice. My phone camera can't do this particular pink and the gradations, the ombreness any justice, but they're so beautiful. I have an older lily plant over here which just seems to be struggling to get through, but it has somehow managed to have one bloom, which is pretty impressive as far as I'm concerned. I have the other sweet peas growing over here, And these ones, it's been a bit of a struggle trying to keep on top of watering them. They don't seem to retain water as well as the ones in the other pot, which is a thicker concrete style pot. Unfortunately, the slugs and snails haven't just stopped with the dahlias. They've also been going for the red peppers and the chili pepper plants. And even though we're trying to put the slug pellets around, they still seem to be able to get around it. So we're probably going to have to move those into pots. And I have some sunflowers from plants that I didn't manage to get out in time, but it's still lovely. The tomatoes are coming along. They are beginning to set fruit. And I have some sweet peas in with this yellow courgette plant, which has just gone crazy. I decided to put this one in the pot instead of the raised bed because I didn't have space in the raised bed, and the idea was that I would then move it. But to be honest with you, it's doing so well in this pot, I am not going to be moving it. And this is the first harvest that I've had from this particular plant, and it's going to be exciting to cook with them. I love homegrown courgettes. They're just so much tastier. I have these Ignicia plants that I bought from York Garden, and they need to go in, but I'll do those in another video. I also got these lovely variety of Canterbury bells. They're a bit more upright than the ones that I have. They're also called Campanula, but I'll do another video where I plant those out. We've had a lot of rainy weather. It's been very wet, so consequently there's been a lot more weeds going around, and it hasn't been as warm as I would have liked for this time of year, but never mind. So because of all the wetness, the Japanese anemones are doing really well, and they have these little fuzzy balls that are curled up tightly waiting to explode in blossom. The other thing that's really impressed me is this Floribunda rose. It's just still going strong with flowers, and it's making some more buds, of which I need to spray some vinegar on there to get rid of those green aphids. But some of the Japanese anemones are beginning to blossom as well, and I think if we'd had more sun, they would be in full blossom because they tend to do a lot better when it's very sunny. This crocusma is a really beautiful, vibrant red color. And the nice thing about this section is that all of these perennials, they just die back completely and then they come back again. And they've been doing that for the last 7 years that I've been working in this garden. Now, I have to tell you the tale of this hydrangea. I cut this hydrangea right back down to the ground because it hadn't been blossoming for several years. And this year it's had a fantastic show. And it's incredible what you can do when you prune right back. And in fact, my neighbor was telling me that it's called the Chelsea chop, where you completely chop it right back and see if it will come back again in full blossom. And that's what has happened with this hydrangea over here. I do need to move it though. This entire section I need to rework it, and I've got plans to probably do something next season with it. Just checking in on the newly planted rose, the Ferdinand Pichard, and it is still going strong. It's producing buds and it is flowering, and there's a lot of new greenery, so that's really wonderful. And I'm just keeping an eye on it because it is in a little bit of a sheltered spot, so I need to make sure that it is getting the water that it needs. I'm quickly falling out of love with the Campanula because it has just become really messy, and that will need a bit of work. Quite exciting. Some more Floribunda roses on the way, and I can't wait to see these in bloom. Another plant that has benefited from all the rain is this massive Nasturtium. On the one hand, it is lovely. It does cover over some of the unattractive sections of the garden, but it is massive. There seems to be about 2 different varieties here. There's one with a variegated flower, and there's one with the traditional bright orange Nasturtium color. And I do kind of let these run wild. They grow from seed, but they can be useful for covering over unsightly sections that I just want to pretend don't exist. Now going over to what's supposed to be my southern border, I have the first of one of the most beautiful dahlias that I think I've seen. This one is called Arabian Night, and the color is so intense, lovelies. I cannot wait for the next week when it is going to be in full blossom, but it has somehow managed to survive the snails and slugs. Other dahlias haven't been quite so lucky, so that's been quite frustrating. I have a crochisma plant here that's getting ready to bloom, and it has this really lovely pre-blossoming flowers that look like a wheat grain, but very, very pretty to look at. And in amongst this nasturtium, there are some sweet peas which just seem to have struggled to establish themselves, which again, it's been quite frustrating. I know that over winter I'm making notes in my gardening diary that I need to work on enriching the soil in this particular section, because things that are supposed to be thriving haven't quite thrived, and things that possibly shouldn't be thriving are thriving. If that makes sense. So my lupin is looking very raggedy. It's just grown very leggy and does need some tidying up, which I'm hoping to sort out very soon. It was finally dry enough to be able to get the grass mown, and we used the grass clippings to sort of as a mulch on this section that I did a massive weeding session on, so that we don't get the weeds growing through. I moved a Zephyrin Druhin rose over to this trellis, so that used to be by the other back door, and it wasn't thriving there, so I've moved it, so we'll see. And I have these, I think they're called drumstick alliums that are growing from seed in the garden. The mauve's ball that I planted out a couple of months ago, it doesn't seem to be doing well, and my peonies are dying off. This area has become a little bit of a mysterious Bermuda Triangle for me, because things just don't seem to be thriving, so I need to do some investigations on it. The sedum is doing quite well, and you can see on there we still have water droplets from when it's been raining. The snails and slugs have been having all the joy of my flag irises, so that's something to sort out. And we have this section that is the equivalent of my Monica's cupboard. If you've ever watched Friends from all that time ago, you know she'll have the one cupboard where everything is just messy. And yeah, this area is really messy for me, but there's a lovely heritage variety rose that creeps through from my neighbor's side, and I never cut it off because it has this beautiful pink little flowers in and amongst the greenery. The Clematis Supernova is still going strong with loads of new flower buds, as well as flowers that are currently blossoming. And this is my bag of weeds. Whenever I'm picking up any weeds, I'm chucking them into that bag, and then probably going to have to do a bonfire to get rid of them. But it's nice to be able to get around the trampoline now, because before we couldn't even do that. And I'm optimistic and hopeful that this clematis is very happy here, and that in a few years it will have taken over this side of the trellis. I also left a few nasturtium plants around this side when I did the massive weeding session, and it's quite interesting seeing all these different varieties that are beginning to come through. And these are all self-seeding, by the way, and really beautiful, gorgeous, popping colors. At least this section of the garden is now accessible, which I'm very happy about. The fruits in the apple tree are continuing to grow bigger. We're constantly shaking the trees so that there's less weight on the branches. And the plums are coming into season now, and there's been some that have been ready to pick, and such a beautiful color, and I do love the color combination of the deep plum with the orange of the nasturtiums. And it's one of the things that I really love about gardening is all the colors that you get in nature. They are just so uplifting and so vibrant. And it's also the same for the birds. So the birds have been going for the plums as well, which can be a bit frustrating, but we have to somehow make do. The carrots are doing really well, and I honestly don't know where these little seeds came from. So when we would be weeding the carrot beds, we were leaving the pansy seeds, which I have no idea where they came from, but they're these pretty yellow ones. The runner beans are going strong. All the rain has been very beneficial for them, and they're just winding themselves up around the canes headed towards the sky. This zucchini or courgette plant is doing really quite well as well. It hasn't produced as much as the yellow one, but time will tell. We'll see. This particular variety is called Ambassador, and that does really well. I had that last year and it was brilliant. The leeks are going quite strong, nicely fattening up, but those are going to be a winter crop. My butternut squash plant is still growing very, very slowly, frustratingly, but everything else is doing really well. So the purple sprouting broccoli and the kale is doing good. We have been harvesting the kale and actually having that for some meals as well. The dwarf French beans have got flowers on them, and we've also been harvesting the mange too. As you can see, there's loads of them, and we have to pick them daily now. They're just fully fruiting, and the idea is to pick them quickly before they expend energy towards creating seed pods, and the more you pick them, the more they make them. So this bed that I sowed seeds out for, I think 2 weeks ago, is going strong. The carrots have germinated, and these are fast growing carrots. I think these ones are called Eskimo. Yeah, and those should be ready within 6 weeks. And I've got some lettuce plants growing here so that we can have some freshly picked lettuce. There is a French bean plant that just only one has come out for some reason, and I've planted out some sunflowers over there, but we'll have to see how those get on. So the gardening side of things is looking really good. I also have a green gage plant, and the green gages, they do really well because they don't actually turn in color, so the birds don't notice they're there. So we tend to get more of the green gages than we get with the plums, because we can tell that they're ripe only when they feel soft to the touch, unlike the plums, which turn color and attract the birds as well. And unfortunately, we've got an abundance of pigeons, and they just seem to be going for the fruit, going for the vegetables, because we don't actually have any natural predators for pigeons in our area. Some areas in the north, they've got red kites or sparrowhawks, but we don't have that in our area, unfortunately. We just rely on other people's cats to hopefully do the job. The other thing that I forgot to show you was this massive daisy plant. I don't know what the name for this is. All I know is I think I bought it from J. Parker's, but they are so big as the palm of my hand, and I just love how bright and cheerful they are, particularly when it's been rainy. And the hanging basket is doing quite well, considering all things considered, and it is still going strong. I bought this one from Aldi, so I've been very impressed by its performance so far. And I've been coming across a lot of little froggies. We do have a pond that has frogs in it, and every year they will come back to mate, and so we always get to see frogs around. So it's always lovely when I bump into a froggy in my wanderings, and I can be like, hello. So these ones are just common brown frogs, and this one is probably about a year old. They do get a little bit bigger, and it's normally in their 3rd year, I believe, that they will come back to then produce their own offspring, but they generally tend to be around the garden itself. Now, on this south-facing side of the garden, that's on the other side of the house, I've got the dwarf sweet peas, which they are really beautiful pops of color, and I think these ones were called the Spencer variety, and they do have loads of different beautiful colors, some lovely purples and pinks with some ombres in them, but they're so short, the stalks are so short, they don't do very well as cut flowers, unlike the other climbing peas. The second Clematis supernova is doing really well on the south facing wall, so I'm quite optimistic that it is going to do what I'm keeping my fingers crossed it will do. As you can see on this side, the mauve's ball is doing really well and is very happy, and I basically need to add another 2 or 3 plants on there just to do a repetition. The other thing that I've been very impressed with this year is this clematis plant, which is in a pot. I don't know what the name of this one is. It came with a terracotta pot that I bought from auction, but it has these really lovely burgundy colored flowers. Unfortunately, they have been caught up around the blueberry netting that we have in place to protect from the birds. So yeah, but it looks really lovely, and the blueberries themselves are going quite well. And just to finish off, I got a recent lot at the auction. I got these lovely terracotta pots for the strawberries. So I am going to be moving the strawberries into these terracotta pots, and that's how they will be grown next year. And this was a really good bargain. The terracotta pots, they seem to do so much better than the plastic pots. That's all that I have today for the garden walk and talk. Thank you so much for hanging out with us in our garden. And until I see you next time, lovelies, I wish you blue skies, health, and happiness. Bye.